For 16 million years, one name ruled the ancient oceans with absolute, unchallenged authority. Megalodon, a shark nearly 60 feet long, patrolled warm seas like a living nightmare. Its jaws could crush bone thicker than your leg in a single devastating bite. Nothing in the water dared challenge its supremacy. Nothing could match its size or ferocity. But evolution doesn't care about reputations or comfortable dominance. Somewhere beneath those ancient waves, nature was building something revolutionary. A predator that hunted whales with intelligence, strategy, and teeth longer than kitchen knives. This creature would force the ocean's greatest killer to look over its shoulder for the first time in its existence. This is the story of Livyatan melvillei, the monster that made Megalodon nervous. The perfect killing ground. 15 million years ago, planet Earth ran a fever. Global temperatures soared beyond anything modern humans have experienced. The oceans absorbed this heat, transforming into vast warm water systems that stretched across entire hemispheres. And warmth changed everything about how marine ecosystems functioned. Higher temperatures sparked explosive plankton blooms across the world's oceans. These microscopic organisms multiplied beyond measure, creating dense clouds of living nutrients. Small fish gorged themselves on the endless supply, their populations exploding in response. Larger fish followed the bounty, feeding on schools so thick they darkened the water. And at the top of this pyramid, massive predators evolved to exploit what seemed like infinite abundance. This era, known as the Miocene, created conditions unlike anything before or since. The breakup of the supercontinent Pangaea had reshaped global geography, creating semi-enclosed seas and shallow coastal zones. These areas became concentration points for marine life, evolutionary pressure cookers where predator and prey evolved in deadly arms races. Fossil deposits in Peru, Chile, and along ancient coastlines preserve evidence of what happened next. Into these warm, productive waters came baleen whales, evolution's answer to the question of efficiency. These creatures weren't hunters or fighters. They were living filtration systems designed to process vast quantities of water. They grew to enormous sizes, some reaching lengths exceeding 30 feet. Their bodies accumulated thick layers of blubber, energy reserves that sustained them through seasonal migrations and lean periods. From a survival perspective, baleen whales made curious choices. They moved in predictable patterns, following seasonal plankton blooms. They traveled in groups, creating easy targets for any predator with sufficient size. They possessed no defensive weapons, no armor, no particular speed advantage. They were slow, fat, and fundamentally defenseless against determined attack. For predators, this represented an opportunity beyond measure. Baleen whales were essentially mobile food packages, constantly available and relatively easy to kill. Their populations numbered in the millions, spread across every ocean basin. Any predator that could crack the code of whale hunting would inherit evolutionary jackpot. And for millions of years, one predator dominated this niche absolutely. Megalodon emerged as the ultimate whale-killing machine. Growing to lengths approaching 60 feet and weighing over 50 tons, this massive shark possessed jaws capable of opening wide enough to swallow a small car. Its teeth, triangular serrated blades measuring over 7 inches in length, could tear through flesh and blubber with horrifying efficiency. Its bite force exceeded 40,000 pounds per square inch, enough to crush most bones outright. For 16 million years, Megalodon perfected a hunting strategy that proved devastatingly effective. Attack from below, targeting the vulnerable underbelly. Deliver a massive bite that severed major blood vessels and caused catastrophic trauma. Retreat and wait while the victim bled out, then return to feed on the carcass. The technique worked flawlessly against slow, predictable baleen whales. Generation after generation refined these tactics until hunting became almost routine. But comfort breeds complacency. Specialization, while efficient, creates vulnerabilities. Megalodon became so perfectly adapted to hunting baleen whales in warm waters that it lost flexibility. Its entire evolutionary strategy hinged on one assumption: the abundance would continue forever. Nature had other plans. Evolution's counterattack. While Megalodon dominated through size and power, evolution was experimenting with something radically different. Somewhere in the toothed whale lineage, a branch developed that would challenge every assumption about whale behavior and capabilities. This lineage would produce Livyatan melvillei, named after both the biblical sea monster Livyatan and Herman Melville, author Moby Dick. The name proved appropriate. This wasn't a gentle giant filter feeding on krill. This was a predator that rewrote the rules about what whales could be and do. Everything about Livyatan's anatomy suggested violence on a scale the ocean had rarely witnessed. The teeth provide the first clue to this creature's nature. Modern sperm whales, Livyatan's closest living relatives, possess small conical teeth used primarily for gripping slippery squid. Livyatan's teeth measured 36 centimeters, over 14 inches, making them the largest functional teeth of any known animal. These weren't gripping tools. These were weapons designed for tearing and crushing. Even more remarkably, Livyatan possessed these massive teeth in both upper and lower jaws. Most toothed whales have teeth only in the lower jaw, using the upper jaw as a surface to grip prey against. Livyatan had evolved a true biting mechanism, with interlocking teeth that could shear through flesh and bone. The dental arrangement suggested hunting strategies fundamentally different from any other whale. Size estimates place Livyatan at approximately 57 feet in length, though some researchers suggest certain individuals may have exceeded this. At this size, the animal would have weighed between 35 and 55 tons. This put it in direct competition with Megalodon, matching the shark's dimensions almost exactly. For the first time, the ocean's apex predator faced something its own size. But Livyatan's skull reveals the most telling adaptations. Unlike the elongated, streamlined skulls of other sperm whales, Livyatan possessed a short, broad, massively reinforced cranium. The jaw attachment points show evidence of enormous muscle masses capable of generating devastating bite forces. The entire structure was built to withstand tremendous stresses during violent predatory encounters. Examination of the inner ear structures provides additional insights. The anatomy suggests Livyatan hunted primarily at the surface rather than in the deep ocean where modern sperm whales pursue squid. This meant Livyatan operated in exactly the same zones where Megalodon hunted. The two apex predators weren't just competing for prey. They were hunting in the same water at the same time. Fossil discoveries place Livyatan across multiple continents. Specimens have emerged from Peru, Chile, Australia, and possibly California. This wasn't a localized phenomenon restricted to one region. Livyatan had achieved global distribution, establishing populations wherever its preferred prey existed. And its preferred prey was exactly what Megalodon had been eating for millions of years. The stage was set for competition unlike anything the ocean had experienced. Two predators, similar in size, hunting the same prey in the same locations. According to competitive exclusion principle, this situation couldn't last indefinitely. One species would need to adapt, relocate, or face population decline. But which one would prevail? Arsenal of intelligence. Physical size and weaponry tell only part of the story. The true revolution Livyatan represented came from what separated it fundamentally from Megalodon: a sophisticated brain capable of complex thought. Sharks, for all their success, operate on relatively simple behavioral programming. Their brains process sensory information and trigger instinctive responses. They hunt through pattern recognition and repetition. Megalodon had developed an effective hunting strategy and executed it repeatedly for millions of years. But this approach lacked flexibility when circumstances changed. Whales, by contrast, possess some of the most complex brains in the animal kingdom. Modern toothed whales demonstrate problem-solving abilities, social learning, and behavioral flexibility that rivals primates. They adapt hunting strategies to local conditions, learn from experience, and pass knowledge through generations. Livyatan inherited this cognitive sophistication. This intelligence manifested in practical ways during hunting and conflict. Megalodon relied on surprise attacks from below, using the ocean's depth to mask its approach. But Livyatan possessed echolocation, a biological sonar system that could map the underwater environment with extraordinary precision. Sound waves emanating from its massive head bounced off objects and returned, creating detailed acoustic images of everything nearby. With echolocation, Livyatan could detect Megalodon's approach from hundreds of meters away. The shark's surprise attack strategy, perfected over millions of years, became suddenly obsolete. Livyatan would know the shark was coming long before it struck. This single adaptation shifted the balance of power dramatically. But intelligence and sonar were just the beginning. Livyatan's massive head contained an organ called the spermaceti, a structure filled with specialized oils. In modern sperm whales, this organ helps with buoyancy control and possibly sound production. In Livyatan, the spermaceti reached enormous proportions, suggesting additional functions. Some researchers theorize Livyatan could weaponize this structure. Ramming attacks, delivered with a massive reinforced skull, could deliver bone-crushing impacts. The spermaceti might also focus and amplify sound into directed acoustic blasts capable of stunning or disorienting prey and competitors. While this remains speculative, the anatomical structures support these possibilities. The combination created a predator with multiple attack vectors and defense strategies. Livyatan could detect threats early, outmaneuver opponents through superior awareness, deliver crushing bites with its massive teeth, ram with its reinforced skull, and possibly deploy acoustic weapons. Against most prey, any single capability would suffice. Against Megalodon, having multiple options might make the difference between victory and defeat. Clash of Titans. When predators of equal size and capability compete, the outcome depends less on raw power and more on strategy and adaptation. A hypothetical encounter between Livyatan and Megalodon would have played out as a contest between fundamentally different hunting philosophies. Megalodon would approach as it had for millions of years, from below, using depth and the surface glare to mask its presence. The attack would come fast and violent, jaws opening wide to deliver a massive bite to the target's midsection. Against baleen whales, this strategy proved devastatingly effective. One good bite typically decided the encounter. But Livyatan wasn't a baleen whale. Its echolocation would detect the approaching shark long before the attack reached striking range. Instead of being surprised, Livyatan would turn to face the threat, eliminating the ambush advantage. Megalodon would find itself approaching a fully aware, fully prepared adversary. The physical confrontation would favor Livyatan in several ways. Megalodon's skeleton consisted entirely of cartilage, lighter and more flexible than bone, but also more vulnerable to crushing damage. Livyatan's powerful jaws, capable of generating bite forces approaching 16,000 pounds per square inch, could shatter cartilage relatively easily. A solid bite to Megalodon's body could cause structural damage that would compromise the shark's mobility. Megalodon's teeth, while formidable, evolved for cutting through blubber and flesh. Against Livyatan's thick hide, dense muscle layers, and possible protective blubber, those teeth would cause damage, but not necessarily fatal injuries immediately. Livyatan could absorb punishment that would destroy most prey species and continue fighting effectively. The battle would become a contest of endurance and tactics. Megalodon would attempt to deliver its signature devastating bite while avoiding Livyatan's jaws. Livyatan would use its superior awareness to anticipate attacks while seeking opportunities to grapple and crush. Ramming attacks might stun or disorient the shark, creating openings for follow-up bites. If Livyatan secured a grip on Megalodon's body, the outcome would likely be decided quickly. Those massive teeth would penetrate deep, while the powerful jaws crushed through cartilage. Violent shaking could cause additional internal damage. Even if Megalodon escaped, the injuries might prove fatal over time. Most encounters probably didn't escalate to full combat. Both animals were intelligent enough to assess risk versus reward. Minor confrontations, threat displays, and tactical retreats would have been more common than fights to the death. But when resources became scarce or territories overlapped significantly, violent conflict became inevitable. The fall of giants. The story of Livyatan and Megalodon isn't just about which predator was superior. It's about how changing conditions can undermine even the most successful evolutionary strategies. Neither creature ultimately survived to see the modern ocean. Around 5 million years ago, Earth's climate began cooling. The warm Miocene gave way to cooler Pliocene conditions. Ocean temperatures dropped several degrees across multiple regions. This seemingly modest change triggered cascading effects throughout marine ecosystems. Baleen whale populations, which had thrived in warm, productive waters, began changing their distributions. Many species moved toward polar regions where cold waters supported massive plankton blooms during summer months. Others adapted to exploit different food sources in changing environments. The easy abundance that had sustained giant predators for millions of years started disappearing. For highly specialized predators like Megalodon and Livyatan, these changes created insurmountable challenges. Both species required enormous quantities of food to sustain their massive bodies. Both had evolved specifically to hunt baleen whales in warm waters. When their prey changed behaviors and distributions, the giants couldn't adapt quickly enough. Being large became a liability rather than an advantage. Smaller predators with lower caloric requirements could survive on less abundant prey. More flexible hunting strategies allowed them to exploit different food sources as opportunities arose. The era of the solo apex superpredator was ending, replaced by smaller, more adaptable species. Livyatan disappeared from the fossil record around 5 million years ago. Megalodon persisted longer, surviving until approximately 3.5 million years ago before finally going extinct. The ocean's new apex predators were killer whales, highly intelligent pack hunters capable of coordinating complex attacks. Great white sharks filled another niche, large enough to take substantial prey, but small enough to survive on varied diets. The lesson proves universal. Dominance is always temporary. No matter how perfectly adapted, no matter how successful, every species eventually faces conditions that challenge its survival. Evolution favors flexibility over specialization in the long term. The story of Livyatan and Megalodon reminds us that nature's greatest achievements often carry seeds of their own obsolescence. These titans ruled their world completely, perfect products of their environments. But perfection creates inflexibility, and inflexibility becomes vulnerability when conditions shift. The ocean didn't need new masters, it needed survivors. Today's apex predators aren't the biggest or most powerful. They're the smartest and most adaptable. In the game of evolution, the prize goes not to the strongest, but to those who can change.